Hi there, this is an introduction to a special issue on species reintroduction and rewilding projects. As humans, we have caused the extinction of species all over the world and destroyed habitats so that many species have nowhere left to live. But can we reverse this trend? Can we bring species back from the brink? Can we restore damaged ecosystems to their former glory? This special issue showcases recent advances in species reintroduction and rewilding projects, which are becoming increasingly widespread as conservation biology matures. We present 8 articles that explore various aspects of species reintroductions and rewilding projects with the aim to inform future conservation efforts by evaluating successes and failures of past projects and reflecting on the ecological and socioeconomic factors that influence them. The need to save species from extinction is urgent and often necessitates immediate action. However, as several chapters in this issue highlight, planning ahead is crucial for a successful species reintroduction program. For example, in their study, Helen Hindle and colleagues investigated what factors predict the effectiveness of reintroduction programs for threatened Australian mammals by analyzing 76 projects that had been conducted up until 2018. They found that the extent of prior habitat destruction was the most important factor influencing a species' chance of survival after reintroduction. Their results also suggested that while more resources are always better, there is a threshold beyond which additional funding does not increase the likelihood of success. The authors conclude that this threshold approach could be used to prioritize reintroduction programs and maximize limited conservation resources for threatened species. But even when extensive planning goes into a project, sometimes it just doesn't work out as hoped. Emma Ashley and her co-authors looked at 9 failed reintroductions of 3 species of New Zealand as critically endangered flightless birds, the weka, kiwi, and makakariki. They found that failure was most likely when multiple threats were present at the reintroduction site, such as predators or human disturbance. This was particularly true for the weka, where predation by introduced stoats and feral cats was a major problem. However, they also found that lack of suitable habitat was an important factor for all 3 species, highlighting that even if threats can be sufficiently mitigated, species may still fail to establish if their habitat requirements are not met. The authors therefore recommend that more attention should be paid to habitat quality and quantity in both the planning and implementation phases of a reintroduction program. However, it's not all about the site selection. A species' own biology also plays a role in its ability to reestablish a population. In their study, Beth Gardner and colleagues assessed the genetic health of Florida panthers that had been reintroduced into the wild as part of a conservation breeding program. Despite an initial increase in genetic diversity following the reintroductions, the authors found that the overall genetic health of the population remained poor due to low effective population sizes, high inbreeding levels, and the accumulation of potentially harmful genetic variants. These findings highlight the importance of considering the genetic status of a species before implementing a reintroduction program. While captive breeding programs are often successful in increasing population sizes, they can inadvertently reduce genetic diversity, making it more difficult for the species to adapt to environmental changes in the long term. And even if a species manages to establish a new population, there are no guarantees that it will thrive. Top predators often face difficulties when reintroduced into areas where they have been extirpated. This is because they have an impact on the abundance and behavior of their prey, which in turn affects the abundance and distribution of other species in the ecosystem. Wolf reintroductions in Yellowstone National Park are a well-known example of this trophic cascade. Wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone in 1995 after having been extirpated in the park in the late 1920s, and since then, their presence has had cascading effects throughout the park's ecosystem. One notable effect has been the decline in the elk population, which has led to changes in vegetation patterns as elk are voracious browsers. By reducing their numbers, wolves have allowed more plants to grow, which in turn provides habitat for other species such as beavers. Wolves have also affected the behavior of other animals in the park, such as the American black bear. By preying on bears that venture too close to the park's human visitors, wolves have helped to reduce the number of bear-human conflicts. However, not everybody benefits from the return of the top predator. Elk and bison sometimes compete for the same food resources. So when elk numbers decrease due to wolf predation, bison are able to expand their range into new areas. These changes in the Yellowstone ecosystem have led to a more diverse and resilient system that is better able to withstand disturbances such as drought. However, not everybody benefits from large carnivores returning to their historical range. While there is growing support for restoring trophic interactions through the reintroduction of predators in Europe, local communities often oppose these plans, mainly due to concerns regarding livestock depredation. In their paper, Charlotte DeSelliers and colleagues investigated how farmers' perceptions of large carnivore reintroductions differ between two contrasting regions in France. Their results show that farmers in the western region, where large carnivores already occur, had a more positive view of the ecological role of these predators than farmers in the eastern region, where they are absent. Interestingly, the authors also found that farmers who had experienced conflicts with large carnivores were not necessarily more negative towards them than those who had no experience with carnivore livestock depredation. This suggests that the negative impacts of reintroductions on livestock are outweighed by the positive effects on the ecosystem as a whole in the minds of most farmers. The authors conclude that these findings could help to inform future conservation efforts by providing insights into how local stakeholders perceive the reintroduction of large carnivores. However, while bringing back charismatic species such as wolves gets most of the headlines, many rewilding efforts focus on less sexy but equally important creatures such as beavers. Beavers are ecosystem engineers, meaning that they modify their environment in ways that benefit not only themselves, but also a wide range of other species. In their article, Alice Rasher and colleagues evaluated the effectiveness of beaver reintroductions in a fragmented agricultural landscape in Switzerland. They found that while reintroduced beavers did not significantly increase the abundance or diversity of other species in their new habitats, they did increase the abundance of rare species that specialized in very specific habitat types. This suggests that beavers can play an important role in conserving biodiversity in agricultural landscapes, but that the overall effectiveness of their reintroductions depends on the type of habitat available. The authors also highlight the importance of considering the socioeconomic context of reintroductions, as beaver dams can cause flooding and other problems for humans. Therefore, it is important to find ways to mitigate potential conflicts between beavers and humans in order to ensure the success of reintroduction programs. While each of these species faces its own unique set of challenges and opportunities, they all highlight the complexity of rewilding landscapes and the need to consider a variety of factors when planning these types of projects. Rewilding projects are becoming increasingly popular as a way to restore damaged ecosystems and bring back species that have been lost due to human activity. However, as these studies show, simply bringing a species back to its historical range is not enough to ensure its long-term survival. Careful planning and consideration of the complex web of interactions that exist within an ecosystem are necessary to ensure that reintroductions are successful and that they do not cause unintended consequences. That's it for our special issue on species reintroduction and rewilding projects. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get notified about new episodes. You can also check out our website for more information on this and previous episodes. Thanks for watching.